Welcome to the Bitcoin Aggregated podcast. There's a lot of stuff this week to go through, particularly with the crazy downswing in the markets, which a lot of people freaking out. I've been through this so many times; it's like nothing to me, so it's not a big deal at all. But yeah, some really cool stuff. The first one I wanted to kick off with was this Joe Rogan clip and Michael Saylor put up. So basically, he says, actually, let's watch it. Let's watch it because it's really cool.
Imagine if Bitcoin becomes the only money worth anything, and then everybody's like, "But I don't have any of it." Well, your money's not worth shit.
Can you hear that?
Imagine if Bitcoin becomes the only
Yep,
money
sounds
worth
good.
anything, and then everybody's like, "But I don't have any of it." Well, your money's not worth shit. You got to get new money. You got to get money in Bitcoin.
That's what's going to happen.
And then there's only a certain amount of Bitcoin, right? Like the Bitcoin number is finite, right? So like maybe there's no Bitcoin for you.
Right.
Like what the fuck are you talking about?
That's
Like,
what's going to happen.
That's what's gonna happen.
You just predicted the future, Joe.
Imagine if Bitcoin becomes the only money.
So what I love about that is it's obviously taken Joe a long time to actually get orange pilled because he's
primed for it though. Like he's such an open-minded guy. Like I feel like
he is, but he's had Andreas on like a couple times, like years ago, right? And he like gave him one-on-one learning for personalized learning for 3 hours on Bitcoin. And then like you've heard him after that sort of say comments like he's not sure about it, blah 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 blah. That sounds
it's hitting
like
home now, right? I think
it's hitting
all
home.
the world events are kind of like brewing into this perfect storm where
Yeah.
like now Joe can't even, because like even listening to that as I don't want as seasoned Bitcoiners, like
Yeah.
that's a very elementary take on
Yes.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like you're like, what if there's no money left for you? Like he's getting it, but he's right at the start. He's right at the start. He still has such a long way to go, but it's awesome. Yeah, like I'd like to see another, like the tweet comes from Saylor, but a lot of people are calling for Michael to go on Joe's podcast. I mean, I think
that
he
would
actually that would be a great couple hours of listening. And I think he, and certainly no disrespect to Andreas, he's an exceptionally smart man. And some of the things he's done for Bitcoin has been, exceptional. But I think he's the wrong person to orange pill Joe. And I think maybe Saylor might have a better crack at it.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, it sounds like he's there, like he's halfway there anyway. But I suppose the only thing with Saylor, Joe, it's probably good for Joe. He can have a rest because Saylor just doesn't let anyone speak. He just goes hell for left. I love it. I love listening to him. It's amazing. And he's so articulate, obviously, and has so much knowledge, like for such a short period of time that he can just dispel like to anybody that wants to listen. It's amazing. This is good as well. So another Sailor one. I don't know if you saw this, but basically with the whole recent thing with the markets and everything, like we've all been predicting, all these people are highly invested into shit coins basically and scams for the most part. Now the difference between Bitcoin and crypto is, I think, really crystallized, and it's funny because like even like my sort of friendship groups that historically haven't understood the difference between the two, they just think crypto is crypto, whatever. They're starting to recognize it, and I think this clip, it's a bit long, but he sort of breaks it down really succinctly. If we can hear it.
Crypto community is having a reckoning. I think they're realizing there's a difference between crypto and Bitcoin. There's the reason that Bitcoin doesn't need to have an army of lawyers and issue 10,000 pages of disclosures is because there's no small group of people doing anything that could do anything, right? And on the other hand, the rest of the crypto economy is either producing the stable coins or they're producing other tokens. And we can see that there's now massive uncertainty around all of that stuff. And, in a way, this is really an educational event for everybody. I think a lot of people in the crypto community that didn't understand the issue, like what is the risk of getting paid 20% yield or getting paid 8% yield on a token. Now they understand. A lot of people, when we said, Bitcoin's property and the others are securities, and they don't understand why. Like, they're all just crypto tokens. Now they understand that when 4 people can get together and do something that may work and it may crash the entire thing to zero. Now they understand that that means it's a security because you can do something.
Yeah, I thought that was really, like, timing wise, really poignant. But I think it's so clear now, I think, to anyone who's been in, I suppose, for the last cycle, so for the last 4 years or so, anyone who's kind of gone through, I think there's a lot of people have not come in through BTC and they've gone through shitcoins and now they're going to come back to BTC. So it's a bit of a different cycle, but so
I think it
clear.
might have more effect on those people than what it would have on the people who did get introduced through Bitcoin,
Yep.
got into shit coins, and now see Bitcoin as old technology. I think there's, they think, especially a lot of the Ethereum people, because
Yep.
that Ponzi is strong and it's going to take a lot to push it over.
Yep.
And I have no doubt it will eventually see the similar fate to Luna and UST and all these other scams, which are much more newer than what Ethereum is. But I think they're not quite convinced, and many of my friends are like that, and I consider them to be quite smart, but they still don't quite understand Bitcoin very well. It takes, it's taken me almost a decade to get to this level of understanding of Bitcoin, and it's one of those things I'm constantly sharpening. It's not as if, I get Bitcoin, I've read the white paper, that's it. No, it's continually evolving, and you can't sleep on it essentially, because you'll be left behind. And I'm seeing that a lot with my friends, actually, is that they've kind of slept on Bitcoin and they sort of think it does the same things it did 10 years ago or whatever, and kind of have a very narrow mind about it. But that's what the shitcoin casino is like, right? It's flashy lights and bright noises and all that sort of stuff, and you get very kind of, starstruck by it all, because you think, oh, look at this new innovation, this new idea, algorithmic stable coins, and here they are tanking to zero, and people are literally killing themselves because they were so heavily invested because they listened to some influencer on YouTube that told them that this was the next best thing. It's hard to feel sorry for these people, but part of me does, part of me doesn't, because obviously I don't want people killing themselves. That's horrible. But at the end of the day, like, Bitcoiners have been literally warning people about this. People, oh, you're so toxic and Bitcoin maxis. Like, we're doing this to help you.
To help you.
We're not doing this because we're selling you something or we have something to gain from it.
I think that's it, right? There's still people that think you're selling them something. You hit the nail on the head. Like, that's what it is. Like, even with like my groups of friends that are like not into crypto at all. Like, I remember I was trying to explain. What was I trying to explain? I was trying to explain like the concept of separation of state and money. So to understand that without having an understanding of what Bitcoin is and the Bitcoin network, it's such a foreign concept. Like, it was quite interesting. Like, they kind of got kind of upset.
I think that's one of the most important things that we need to be working on. And that's one of the problems that a lot of these folks have, is they get very carried away about NFTs revolutionizing merchandise and tickets and all. It's like, none of these things fucking matter. None of them matter. They're all useless, just crap that just takes substance and attention away from what's important. And that's separating money from state.
That's right.
That is one of the biggest wars that we have. And one of the most important things that we've been working on. And the only thing that I think even stands a chance at solving that problem is Bitcoin. Nothing else can. Everything else is some sort of Ponzi or centralized piece of trash.
Or centralized digital currency, which is terrifying. But like, even going back a step from, people into shitcoins and different blockchain technologies that are going to solve the world. There's like literally people that have no clue whatsoever about any of it. And like, it was just recently just crystallized to me. I was like, oh wow, shit, you're still back then, like over a decade ago, right? Like, they can't see finance as or money as a monetary network. So in their mind, it's like money is something that the state gives you and they create it, and then you use like technology to write that up later on a ledger. Like, whoa, shit! That's your understanding of like the world. It's literally like trying to explain to someone the internet, like before the internet was around, right? Like they just have no, like trying to explain TCP/IP to somebody like back in the 90s, right? They'd just be like, what do you mean? I'd get all my
Yeah.
information from a newspaper.
I think a
Or
lot of people don't even realize that there is Bitcoin, the network, and Bitcoin,
yeah,
the asset.
the protocol, yeah. Yep.
The network is the innovation.
Yep.
It just happens to be that there is an asset that works well on that rails, and that is Bitcoin,
Yeah.
Satoshis. But the real innovation, and for those that listened last week, I talked about a podcast from what Bitcoin did with, what's his name, Darren Feinstein. He talks about this as well, and I think it's a really, really good point. Is Bitcoin is essentially new modernized accounting system.
Yep.
If you go back far enough, we had single entry accounting where we would write on a piece of clay, I own 5 sheep, and that's it. And then we moved, I think it was about the 1400s, we moved to double entry accounting where we said I have 5 sheep and they cost $5. And so there's the two inputs, and we haven't innovated on that problem to date. The only thing that now has it since innovated on it is Bitcoin. Yep. with its network and its ledger. And then that's the real innovation. At least this is the angle that Darren comes from. And I think it's a pretty solid narrative.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's so clear that the like obviously solving the Byzantine generals problem. I've spoken to people that still don't even understand that that's been solved, right? Like outside of the space. It's like, wow, Jesus, we got so much work to do.
Well, a lot of work to do.
It's exciting and frustrating at the the time. You're like, like, well, this is great. Like we're early days still, whatevs. But like, come on, people, we've got a lot. Like, there's a lot of problems we can solve. And it was like even talking this morning, to having a chat just about different chains. So there's like through Digital Playhouse, they've signed up to some I forget what it's called, like basically an auditing chain, and it's like it's interesting project. Sounds like the guys have been around for a long time, so they're trying to build it. But we were kind of talking about like the frustration of where we're at the moment versus sort of where we should be in terms of the tech, and like being able to like utilize it in a way that sort of benefits everyone. And we were going into like how at the moment, say like you had a really decent programmer that could actually say code something into an exchange or code something into particularly Ethereum, where they can just like steal money off people, right? So like take a clip of the ticket. Some pretty sophisticated scams out there now that look like legit. Like there was one we're talking about. There was like a Binance clone that basically only took a little bit of the transactions that you put into this whatever setup they had, like basically to earn yield, and you just never got your yield. But it was like took so long that nobody sort of noticed. It's like really innovative, like people like really putting effort into these scams, and the
There's so
crux
much
of
money
it
to be
is,
made, and there's so many idiots out there. So
well, there is, but like, what's the incentive is what I was getting at. So like, at the moment, because there's all these legacy thinkers, like so people who still think that you write things down and then you use a computer later to, create a ledger or whatever. That's that sort of thinking incentivizes people to try and scam other people, right? Because they're not living in abundance. Like the concept of BTC is going to allow the whole of society to live in abundance. So you're not going to have that incentive to go, I want to screw these people over and steal their money. You might have one guy doing that out of a million, but for the most part, you're not going to have that in the future. You'll have people like, oh, okay, I'm fine. How do I help other people? I want to put those skills into actually building something that helps society, right? And it's kind of like where we're at with Alpha. Like that's what we're doing. We're building something to help other people specifically because we can see the future sort of thing. So I think once we get that at scale, it's really going to change like mindsets across the world as well.
Yeah,
early days.
that's a good point. I think the other good video worth watching is the one right in the middle there, Dave Smith. I thought I mean, one, because I want to rewatch it, but I remember watching it this morning and thinking he was really, really good.
Yeah, so another comedian is like, wow, comedians are coming out of the woodwork, like as BTC orange pilled maxis. It's
Also
amazing to see.
To the idea of cryptocurrency and specifically Bitcoin, that libertarians have to recognize how important this issue is, because this, to me, is like the most important thing. In the same sense that hundreds of years ago, the separation of church and state was the most important thing that really ended religious wars. You really don't have religious wars anymore unless there's governments who are, in bed with religions, who are trying to impose themselves on other governments. And what we need today in the United States of America more than anything is the separation of money and the state, the separation of banking and the state. This is the cause of so many of our problems right now, is that the currency is controlled by the government. This allows us to spend way beyond our means to pull things off that we could never pull off if the government wasn't just printing money out of thin air. The entire idea that we're going to go around and, occupy foreign countries for 20 years in the Middle East with nothing to show for it. Try doing that if you had to actually tax the people, the money. Try gaining popular support for that if every month people had to pay for the war in Afghanistan. That thing would have been over by Christmas of 2001.
Yep.
And so many of these things. And the same thing with the lockdowns. I mean, try maintaining the lockdowns if you couldn't just print up trillions of dollars in 2020. There's no way it could have been done. So this is really like the Federal Reserve, and the money printing is the lifeblood of the Leviathan. That's what we need to attack. And that's why Bitcoin is such an incredible, has so much potential. And those people should be libertarians.
Wasn't that the whole?
Yeah. I don't know who this guy is, but like that minute 30, I thought was quite excellent.
He's good. He's a comedian. He's been around for a fair few years, but he's quite articulate. He does a fair bit of good stuff. I thought it was just like kind of cool that Joe and another comedian are sort of out there at the moment, and he was really articulate. I think like his point as well, like talking about
over
the
Christmas.
Separation of church and state, and that being related to
Yeah.
BTC obviously is awesome. But like funding stuff. So like the key there is like, and I was talking about this morning as well, actually. Like, I want to be able to see where my taxes go in real time. I would happily pay more in taxes if I could pick where it's going to. So I wanted to go to education, these particular schools or whatever. Why can't we do that? We got the tech to do it now. We got the network to do it now. It's ridiculous that we're not there at this stage. And being able to fund a war would be impossible. Doing that is 100% right. Like it's the answer to world peace, really, I think.
Well, what's the classic meme? Bitcoin fixes this. At this point, like, what can't it fix?
Yeah,
I say that tongue in cheek, of course.
Yeah, but it's the deeper you dive, it really does. Fixes stuff, right?
That's why the meme's strong, because like, oh shit, there's an element of truth to this.
Yeah. So just jumping on to one of these ones. So Kim.com, I don't know if you saw this one posted the other day. I know.
So we were talking about him last week. It might have been something else.
I think we were just talking like offline about it.
Oh, right.
And your interactions with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty interesting. I don't know how much truth there is to it, but it was like when that tweet came out, like the market sort of crashed. So there could be something behind it, I suppose. But at the same time, it's another cycle, right? Like I think the BTC market's very hard to manipulate because it's 24/7. And you have centralized exchanges. I think we need to move to DEXs, obviously, kind of moving forward. But that's probably the single point of failure. And the thing that I like explain to everyone about the crash is, one, like obviously hash rate's still at all-time highs, so meaningless, right? But two, like obviously, so the price and fiat doesn't really matter that much. It's just literally what the last person on an exchange agreed to sell their Bitcoin for. So some nuff is going, I'll go BTC and I'll take that price for it. It's like, it's not a magic number. It's just something that's, some silly people have decided to follow the leader with. So the less the more we move forward, like with the network, the less that's going to happen. So it's to be honest, like I know you're not checking the price, but it's not that bad. Like in terms of historical, downturns or whatever, it's pretty steady. So it's not
Yeah, I think one of the other relevant statistics to what you're saying there is as well, like I've been seeing a bunch of people talking about how like it's like I couldn't remember the exact number, but they were basically alluding to the fact that there's a bunch of these wallets that all have over 1 Bitcoin that haven't moved for, I think it was either 12 months or 24 months. I can't remember the exact number, but
yeah,
basically just making the point that a lot of people are simply just hodling.
Yeah.
And that number is going up.
Yep.
So, that's a good sign for me, and that will hopefully. I mean, everyone wants to try be a professional trader, and people always saying you just got to sell the high and buy the low, and it's like, I mean, yeah, I know, right? Like that's my reaction to. It's like, oh, if it was that easy, like literally everybody would do it. But unfortunately, there's someone else on the other side of the trade. So when you're buying the low, someone's selling it to you. So not everyone can win, and the vast majority, and this week has proven that.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people get absolutely wrecked.
Yep.
What I always say, and it's you play with fire, or you play with fire long enough, you're bound to get burnt. And we're seeing a lot of people get burnt this week. And
for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm just sitting back, relaxing. Couldn't even tell you what the price of Bitcoin is. I know it's down because everyone's panicking, but to me, like my time preference is so low. It just, if it went to 1,000, I just wouldn't care. Like I would still just go on with my life the exact same way as if it went to 100,000.
Yep. Well, that's what I was saying. Like $1 or $1 trillion doesn't really matter in fiat terms. Like it's fake.
Yeah.
It's fake to begin with. So like who cares?
Yeah. Like if the Bitcoin network gets hacked or something, then I'm probably a little bit nervous.
Well,
but
actually that's another point actually I wanted to raise with you as well. So I've got a friend who's really good with tech. I think you might have met him on one of our video conferences before. So he's really great with Linux. He's like works in the Linux Foundation. He's done all sorts of cool stuff. Can't wrap his head around BTC for whatever reason, and he's got this blind spot for that particular thing. So like the concept of the network getting hacked. And I was like, even me explaining it, saying like it's decentralized, it's impossible. Potentially you could hack it for 10 minutes, but you'd need more energy than the whole world basically to do that, and then you control the network. That's the point of it, right? It's really elegant. But not just him, but I know a lot of people who have had the same idea. Like in their mind, it's like a server sitting somewhere that can be hacked, and the idea that it's had over 10 years uptime with 0 hacks, they can't wrap their head around it. Like it's almost like when you say that, it's almost like, but I've read in the news that, an exchange got hacked or something. Like, yeah, that's not the Bitcoin network. That's equivalent of saying like some guy's bank got robbed on the other side of the world. So therefore fiat doesn't work anymore. It's like silly. It's silly thinking.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people like that. And it's strange to me that they, even like technically minded people, can't see it. It's weird.
Like we said earlier, we still got a long way to go.
Long way to go. Yeah.
It's still very early days, even if people don't feel like it is. It very much is.
Yeah. The last one I wanted to touch base on. Oh, actually, this was cool. So El Salvador, like buying more BTC, basically buying the dip. That was awesome to see.
Yeah.
And like, why not, right? It's cool as hell. So hopefully we'll get to go and check that out in November if we head over to El Salvador. But I'm pumped about that. But this one I thought was really interesting for you specifically, and CoinStop, and it seems to be like a wave of crime, crypto crime, where people are literally, getting their phone stolen that has all their cryptocurrency on it. And yeah, like just getting it sneaked off your phone. Oh, wow, we're still sort of there. Like the importance of hardware wallets has been so clear for so long. How is there like a wave of crime doing that? It's just incredible.
More
Yeah,
noobs.
a lot of noobs, but yeah, like you've had a lot of experience like dealing with people in that space specifically, have you seen like could you have sort of predicted that happening versus people getting hardware wallets specifically?
Well, the trend that I've seen over the last sort of 5-6 years dealing in the hardware wallet space is, generally speaking, the type of customer that comes to us now to purchase a hardware wallet is a little bit more nervous about some of these things happening. So they'll often come to us before they've even bought any Bitcoin or any crypto at all, because they've seen stories like this, or they've watched
right.
Netflix and they've seen that Quadriga guy run off with everyone's money.
Yeah.
So they're more attuned to these types of events occurring. And so the fear is kind of quite high in them, and they will be more proactive in making sure that the security is top notch before they even, invest a single cent. So this is somewhat opposite to what that theory is.
Yeah.
So this
It's
is a little bit of a surprise to me, but at the same time, we are still getting much more people in general coming into this industry and starting to invest and do all sorts of things. So whilst, obviously through my lens at CoinStop, I'm seeing more people be proactive because they're coming to us. They are more proactive. There's still a very large percentage of people that have no idea how a wallet works, what's a public address, what's a private key, how should I be storing it, how should I be generating it, what should I share, what shouldn't I share. So there's, whilst it's nice to see more people being proactive, at the same time, the reality is a high percentage of them don't really care. They're in it for the gains.
Yeah.
They're in it to get rich.
Yeah.
They think, they heard from a friend that they invested in Doge and it went up 500% and they can do the same thing.
Yeah.
And before you know it, they've downloaded some app on the Google Play Store that basically is there to steal your keys and say goodbye to all of your crypto. So, again, still a long way to go in terms of education and getting people. But shit like this is free advertising for hardware wallet resellers and hardware wallet manufacturers.
It really
like,
is.
We literally do zero advertising, and we haven't done any advertising for 5+ years of running our business because education is key.
Yeah.
It's whether it's through these, I call these kind of natural disasters where exchanges get hacked and these sort of news articles, it's free advertising for us. And we just sit there and go, okay, well, now you understand the risks.
Yeah.
Let us talk to you about the solutions and why these things are important. And any rational mind, once getting taken through that journey of what's a public key, what's a private key, why is storing on exchange is bad, all the risks that come associated with all those things. Any rational person who cares about any of their money, whether they're in it just to make themselves rich, once you start telling them that they can lose everything, pretty quickly they're spending $100 or $200 and buying themselves a hardware wallet.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people kind of forego those kind of initial really important learning steps and just go straight to, I'm just going to join some shitcoin casino and give them my keys and hope for the best. And many of those people have and will continue to get wrecked.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of this is sort of sensationalized headlines, I suppose.
Wow, it's the Guardian.
Guardian, exactly right. And I was thinking, but the security on phones nowadays is pretty good. You know what I mean? Just to rob somebody's phone and get into it, it doesn't really make sense unless they're sort of at gunpoint or knife point, being London, saying, put your finger on the phone to transfer all the wealth.
Oh, people do crazy things, man. They'll store their seed phrases in their phone's notes, and so those are generally unencrypted. They're not behind any passwords or anything like that.
True.
Maybe there's a phone password, but again, if someone's walking down the street and they're scrolling through Facebook and you grab their phone out of their hand, their phone's unlocked.
Yeah, true. Very true.
So run off and get into their notes, and before you know it, you found 12 or 24 magic words, and that's it. That's all it takes.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Well, that's sad state of affairs for those people, but get a hardware wallet, I think, is the answer to that.
I don't know any single person that hasn't lost some form of Bitcoin or crypto, whether it's through misplacing keys or doing something stupid. We've literally all done it, and it is part of the learning experience. You just hope that when it happens to you, it's not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And again, I have plenty of customers of ours who have been in that situation where they've lost, several hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, I feel for them, but at the end of the day, there's nothing I can do. There's literally nothing anybody can do. Once you have shared your private keys with an attacker, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not sexy work thinking about your security, but it's
No.
very important stuff.
Super important to do. Yeah, the worst hack I was exposed to was at Edutech. So a number of years ago, I did it's like a full day like masterclass sort of thing. So I was using Dogecoin specifically. So I used Dogecoin at school. I loved it because you could just use it, and didn't matter if the kids lost it or whatevs, and it's like has no value, so all good. And it's actually the Walter Satoshi guys, I think, sent over some Doge like to give out to people. So the idea was setting up so they figure out like what a private key is, what a public key is. We can do transactions and what a transaction hash looks like, and it's quite fun. And then actually using Minecraft as a catalyst for some of that, so it's pretty awesome. But the idea was, I'm giving all this Doge out to people, whatevs. Left my laptop open like on the podium where I was sort of presenting, and some douche got up there and like sent all the Doge to himself or herself, whoever it was. And I was like, oh my God, like, I was gonna give it out anyway, you know what I mean? Like, why would you come and steal it? Yeah, it's pretty sad. And then like the sort of pump happened with Elon. I was like, oh my God, that would have been like $40,000 or something ridiculous.
Wow.
That bastard just stole it. But yeah, it's really sad. Like and that goes back to incentives, I suppose. Like what the people's incentives in the current society are to screw over other people because they're living in debt, basically. And if we can fix that, which I think we can, in the next 10 years or so, it's gonna really change. So I don't think my Doge would have got stolen if people sort of living in abundance as opposed to in debt, sort of thing. But anyway, I reckon we'll leave it there. It was a good ep. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Cheers.